Hey everyone, Jason again. So as promised, this is video 6, and we're going to go over traffic, which is one of the challenges that I've kind of been putting off due to some issues with my VM to kind of give you the full breakdown of how the challenge should be solved. We also have a write-up that was provided by one of the team members I'm going to go over as well, which makes it very simplistic. So we'll get into that here. But first, we're going to go into traffic, and I'm going to show you what kind of was supposed to be expected from us, especially when it comes to like incident response, for example. So we'll go step by step on how I made this work. We're going to be utilizing a tool called RITA. There's another tool called Zeek, which is compatible with RITA anyways, and I'll go more into detail with that as well. So I'm going to try to make this video somewhat a little quick. It's not going to be an hour long, I promise that. It's a lot shorter than that. So let's dive right into it. So I'm currently logged in here, and you'll notice that this is not my Kali Linux box. This is actually my Ubuntu box, and specifically, it's a Ubuntu 20-04. And I'll get into that here really quickly right after I explain this as to why. So let's look at traffic here. So this is one of the first challenges that came out. First, I think it's day 2 or day 3 it came out. And we have it from authors John Hammond, of course. And it says, we saw some communication to a sketchy site. Here's an export of the network traffic. Can you track it down? Some tools like RITA or Zeek might help dig through all this data. And these are linkable locations to the tools to download and install them. So if we go ahead and download this, which I already did, and I have it in my downloads folder, my assumption would have been this is a PCAP. Let's open this up and take a look into this folder, and it's technically not. They're gzipped logs. Specifically, this tells me that it's most likely collected by Zeek. So it's not a PCAP. So it's not something we could just open and analyze traffic for a sketchy IP address that we can look up. So we're going to actually have to analyze all these logs somehow and find a sketchy site. Now, I would probably focus on just these HTTP locations because those are going to be probably the ones that are where all the websites are going to be hosted in, so to speak. We could look at Weird or X509, but I'm pretty sure ours is going to be somewhere in here. But we don't have to manually open these up. There's actually a better way to do this when you're analyzing traffic logs like this. So let's go ahead and close this out. I have this kind of already unarchived, sorry, lost my train of thought there, into this folder called Huntress CTF 2023. And this is where I delete this. That wasn't supposed to be there. So I have all the logs archived right here. So they're all sitting here right now. Right, so let's go back here. So the recommendation is to install a tool like RITA or Zeek. So let's go to the GitHub for RITA here. And unfortunately, I don't have it in dark mode. It's not enabled on this virtual machine that I have. And RITA stands for Real Intelligence Threat Analytics, and it's supported by Active Countermeasures, pretty decent company. So it's a free tool that we can install, but we have to kind of do it ourselves, and we have to have all the support in the background. And this is very sophisticated on how this requires to work, and you can see on here on the first automated install that there's an install script that we can use, which I did on this operating system, and I'm going to walk you through how that works to install it automatically. Because you could technically just clone this and build it yourself. You're probably going to run into some issues. So unless you know what you're doing and you just want this to get up and running as quickly as possible, my recommendation would be to use the install script, right? So if you click on here, it takes you to a different part of the release, and it shows you what version it's on. It was released back in April, so it's very active. And we have 4 files here. We don't need all 4 files. We just need the install script, right? So I already have that here. Let's go back to home. And I believe it's this one right here. So we're going to actually launch a terminal, and I'll cat this real quick, install sh, and we'll do a less just so we can see all of it real quick. Let me expand this real quick. And it kind of just automates a bunch of stuff for you, including installation of necessary packages, including Mongo. Zeek is in here as well. It does install dependencies for you if need be. It's a very elongated process. It takes about 10 to 20 minutes depending on how fast your operating system is, but it allows you to install RITA, and RITA is automatically inserted into your path, so it is a system command at this point. So if we do RITA, it will show all the commands that you can run with it. Perfect, right? So now we have RITA installed, or at least we're simulating that RITA is already installed. When you go through the installation process, there's a couple steps that you can choose that you have to pay attention to. For one, this virtual operating system was installed pretty bare bones. It's 20.04 LTS, and it doesn't have anything else installed on it. I literally just did a sudo update and upgrade, and then I immediately installed this sh script. So you see on here that it tells you the easiest way to do this is that you run the installation script. It will also install Zeek and MongoDB. Zeek is not technically necessary for RITA to work, but MongoDB is. You need to be able to have RITA develop a database that's readable and be able to curate all that data. So if you don't want Zeek, you can disable Zeek, but if you don't already have something like MongoDB installed, I would just install it as is if you already have Zeek, because I know depending on what operating system you might be using, you might already have something like Zeek on here. And if you already have Zeek and Mongo, you can just run this whole command. But by default, run this command. If you run into issues, there are some other ways you can try to fix that, but my recommendation is just make sure you have the recommended version of the operating system, because if you have 22.04, I think is the latest one, I can't guarantee it will work. But it did work on this one. This version of Ubuntu is 20.04, worked like a charm. So let's go back into here, the terminal. All right, so we have RITA, right? So how do we use RITA? There's a cheat sheet online you can go to. We're going to kind of scroll down here into this part where it says examining data with RITA, and we have show commands. Well, actually, first before we do that, we have to import data to RITA. So let's take a look at this. So there's two ways. One is generating PCAPs outside of Zeek. This requires you to import PCAPs. We're not going to worry about that option. And then option two is install Zeek and let it monitor and interface directly. So when I install this, there is a step where it's installing Zeek, and it's going to ask you to select an interface to monitor it. It's going to ask you to create a Zeek configuration file. You can select no on that. You do not need to set Zeek to monitor your interface, and that's what I did. Is I selected no on that option because we're not directly connected to any traffic we're monitoring. We're not monitoring live traffic with this. We're just importing already existing log data that we need to analyze. So let's go down here to importing and analyzing data with RITA. So we have one-off data sets, which is what this is technically, and it gives you the proper syntax to put it in. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do RITA import. First, I'm going to actually make sure I'm in the right directory. Let's go to the Huntress directory. There it is. All right. So we're going to do RITA import that, and then I'm just going to call it traffic because that's the name of the challenge. And as you can see, it's parsing data for us. So it's going to go into each one of the log files and push it into the database for us. And it's just aggregating data. And this takes a couple minutes, so we'll let it continue here. And we can already see that, we can see from the numbers here, host analysis 2658, unique connection analysis 2657. So basically these are numbers that we're going to pay attention to, right? So now the import is done. This is a pretty small file, or database, thankfully. So now if we run this command real quick, we're going to do RITA show, I think it's show database. Yeah, all right. So we have one database. So anytime we run a command with RITA to look into data, we have to specify the database that we're looking into. So if we scroll down here, we examine data with RITA. We have show commands, all right? So we're going to do something like RITA show beacons. I don't think there is any beacons in this one. From what I can see, no beacons. Yeah, see no proxy beacon data to analyze. So if I do show beacons and then traffic, it should come up with an error stating that there are beacons. I was wrong. The one I think I saw no traffic on was BL/hostnames. Traffic, and it's gonna say no results found. So no BL hostname. So this BL, I'm not 100% sure if this was supposed to show up this way, but the BL is supposed to stand for blacklisted, as you can probably read on the directions here. None of them show up. So how are we supposed to find what we're supposed to find, right? So there's got to be a flag somewhere in the logs, right? That's the first thing you could technically try to find. You can try to manually analyze the incoming information to see if there's a flag somewhere. The other way you could do it real quickly, instead of doing one-off commands here, is that you can do this little command down here called HTML report, and that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to do RITA HTML reports, and then we're going to do traffic. Okay, and it launches a index HTML with all this information on here, and we're going to go ahead and click on traffic, and it will give us everything in a nice little pretty oriented view, and we can go ahead and just click on all this stuff, and it gives us all this information. It's perfect. Love it, right? So now how do we find this stuff? Well, looking at traffic like this, you got to think kind of like a blue team analyst. You kind of have to look into what is going to stick out as a sore thumb, so to speak, that is not normal. And it's hard to determine that if you don't know your environments. For this environment, there's not really like a feeling of what it's supposed to look like. So like I start with user agents, and there's not really much information on here. Nothing really sticks out. We could go to like DNS here, and we can see how many times somebody has visited this website. And we can go down. Like there's Fox News here, Outbrain.com. There's even mail.ru, which could be suspicious, right? There's a lot of these that we can go down and try to get to the nitty gritty of what these websites look like. But let's go back to the challenge and look at what it talks about. So it says we saw some communication to a sketchy site, right? So it's telling us to focus on a possible sketchy site. Now, sketchy is not in parentheses or anything, but it tells us that it should look sketchy. How do we spot that? Well, we don't know, except the fact that we can kind of look at the beacons. We can see there's a scoring system here. Now the scoring system, I'm going to admit, I don't fully understand. Originally I thought it could be an index based off how sketchy the site looks like, but it's not technically that, because even if we go down to the lowest score here, we have stuff like where was it? Script.crazyegg.com. Even though the site technically doesn't exist, I would rank that worse than something like Google Ad Services, because even though yes, ads can be sketchy as hell, they're being hosted by Google, so Google in itself. Same thing with Chrome.cloudflare.dns, right? But let's take a pay attention to like the first 5 here, right? So we see there's like 30 connections to this JSSec.indexwww.com. This could be some subsite of pertinent data that has to load for a website. We have this ID sync. Again, this could be a synchronization effect on the background of some other site. Here's an ad. That's an ad connect double site or double click site. But then we also have this sketchy site .github.io. Curiously enough, it's .io. That sticks out to me because if I do a search for .io or even a .io, it looks like there's only one of one match. This is the only IO site it's been to. Now we could technically do the same thing with .ru. So let's see, nothing on .ru. So under these beacons SNI, there's no .ru site. There's a .co, which I believe that this is owned by Twitter. That's not really sketchy, right? Remember, we're looking for a sketchy site. It's weird that number 4 on the list is sketchysite.github.io. So intuitively, the way I'm going to look at it is that I'm going to kind of just verify. So this is this mail.ru is on the DNS, but that could be for a number of reasons. We're also going to see how many .io sites come up. There's axstat.io, that's not really sketchy. Branch.io, that could be sketchy. And we could do this too, right? We can kind of visit these sites and see what comes up and see what it is. Normally on like your actual operating system, you should probably have like a third-party operating system or a program that views this, and luckily we're on Ubuntu, so it's not that big of a deal. This doesn't look sketchy, right? This looks like it's modernly used by a legitimate company. Wall.co, that tells me it's possibly Walmart that owns this. Let me see. Not found. Looks like it's owned by somebody else. And we could go into, finding out who owns that domain, right? Cloudflare is obviously not that sketchy. We could do goedge.be. I don't even know what website this is. Again, we can't connect to it, right? So, the sketchy site sticks out like a sore thumb to me. So we're going to keep looking for it. Let's do this one. I don't think there's anything on this one. Nope, doesn't even host, right? So IMHD, Prismic, Oracle Infinity. Let's see here. There it is. Let's go back. Sketchy site. Okay. So let's just go to it. It sticks out to me. So if we go to it, lo and behold, we have a flag. So more than likely, the Huntress team or John Hammond owns this site, and they just post a flag on there, right? Kind of weird. I don't know exactly how they're supposed to expect people to find that quickly enough. It is a medium ranked challenge, so I think part of the challenge was to really curate the data that you have utilizing a tool like RITA, for example, to make it easily human readable. You could go back and go through all the different tools to kind of like finesse it a little bit. And even on here, there is ways to kind of make it more human readable, so to speak, so that way you can make pretty pictures or pretty presentation of what you're looking at. So that is one way to do it. The other way that we'll do it here is that we're going to go over a really, really quickly, or more quickly way, I should say, of finding the sites through an very easy walkthrough. So we have the location here. So let me just make sure that we're in the right location, which we are. So we have traffic. Traffic is the database. We're not going to worry about that, but we're gonna go into the actual directory that I have all the logs in. So we're going to remember that it said it's looking for a sketchy site. The simplest way that this team member wrote up is that, okay, well, let's do a search for sketchy, right? So we're going to do -RNI, right? And we're going to do sketchy. Oops. And then a star, and hit enter. Nothing. Let's get rid of the star. Nothing. So this didn't work exactly the way I was hoping it would. Let me see here. So it should have found it inside the logs. Let's do this. Let me make sure I'm doing this correctly. We need to use zgrep. Option not supported. Let's do. Actually, let's do it this way. sketchy. Okay, and then we're going to do a print. We're going to feed it into zgrep. Okay. Oh, I know what I did wrong. I don't need this twice. We are telling it to look into all the GZ files here. Okay, yeah, so that works. So you can't just grep into zipped files or archived files. I forgot about that. You have to use something called zgrep, but this was the faster way to do it. And what I did is I just did a quick Google search on how to feed that into zgrep, because zgrep can't do recursive searching. It can, and that's what's supposed to design for, is that it can look into compressed and archived files and folders for you, but you have to specify them all. And kind of the way to get around that is to use find. So find allows you to kind of search within all the gzips as long as you feed it back into zgrep correctly. So we'll do it one at a time. And we can see here on the bottom, there's even this one right here. There's their sketchy site.github.io, and that's kind of how you can find something with the name sketchy. And that's kind of the faster way to do it. As you can tell, like took, as long as I had the right syntax here, you know, it just comes up and there you go. So that's pretty much it for this video. I think, let's take a look here. I think the next video is going to be Xerion, and that should also be like a 10 to 20 minutes video. If you guys like what you see, keep watching, and we'll have some more later on. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.